Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about what it takes to buy an investment property and what you need to know to move forward on that transaction. There's a couple of things that we need to talk about before we get started, and that is the real estate market. What is happening with this market? A lot of people are expecting it to go down, right? They can't understand why it's been running for so long. But guess what? Markets is just the opinion of people. If people think a certain way, then it might happen, but not necessarily, right? If you have a job right now, and if you're able to put food on the table, and if unemployment remains at this low, and the bankers do their jobs and do not overburden us with debt, then everything is okay regardless of how long this upswing in the market has been going on. And yes, it's true, the houses today are a little more than what they were before, but the great thing about real estate is that every day someone else needs a house and someone needs to sell their house. Reasons why? Because there could be their family could be growing, right? Or an investor wants to do something else with that property that they've been renting for 10 years and they don't feel like fixing it up. There's other properties where something sadly happened and they get foreclosed on, and you can get some of those properties. Other properties, people take on risks that they shouldn't have taken and they end up losing the property. Or there's a death in the family, or there's a change in trust or a divorce or something like that, that the property needs to be sold soon, right? So all these things are ways for you to get into the real estate market and buy that property. There's a few things that we need to talk about. First off is, don't be afraid of where you live and the market you're in, correct? Sometimes a lot of people get stopped and choose not to do any type of investment because they can't afford it or because they think it's too much. Another thing that we're not going to cover is trying to find the money. We're not going to try to do that today, but what we're trying to do is trying to do the most basic part of a transaction, that is trying to find a house and how to go about understanding if that transaction is going to have any profit for you once you're done with the remodel of the house. And first thing that I like to focus on is, what's your condition? Do you have good credit? Do you have a good salary job? Is there money in the bank? These are three things that are going to affect the way that the loan is put together. Also, how close or far away is the property from where you live? These are all things that they have to be considered to move forward. The first thing I like to think of is the down payment. Now, when I first started, I went to a lot of seminars, a lot of people did, and they tell you to max out your credit cards to get a down payment for the purchase, or to find money through relatives or something like that. Okay? I like to focus first on the down payment, and it doesn't have to be much. Most people I've found that have some money saved up, or they have some assets that they could sell to get started. They might have a $10,000 car, a $20,000 car, they might have three $2,000 cars, they might have some tools, equipment, they could work a couple extra hours, or they have some money saved up from some other source. So look at the money that you have. Say you have $10,000, and figure out how far that will go to buy a house. So if you have $10,000, normally it's 3.5%. So if you're looking at $100,000 house, the $10,000 should cover the 3.5, which ends up being $3,500. Another thing is if you're buying an investment house or a second house, you're gonna need 20% down, maybe 10%, but you want to stick to that 20%. So if we're looking at $10,000, 20%, that's what, $50,000? So that's going to be a little bit more work for you to get done. I recommend having maybe $20,000, $30,000, and this way you can find properties in that range. Now I'm saying if you do only have $10,000, there are homes for $50,000 out there. Have to look for them, but they are available. Do not focus on your immediate neighborhood, which is nice, right? If you know the neighborhood, you could drive to it, then much easier. But if you're starting off, nothing starts off being just the way that you want it. Think about your first car. When you got the first car, was it your dream car? No, it wasn't. You had to work up towards your dream car, right? So it's the same thing with the house. A house, it might not be the house that you wanted, but it might be the correct house for you to start making some money. And that brings me up to my next point, right? Which is square foot costs. Say for example, I have $20,000. That'll get me a $100,000 house. There are several $100,000 houses, not only in California, but throughout the United States, depending where you're watching me from. So you could ask a realtor to give you a list of homes that are in the state for the amount that you could possibly qualify for. Now you found a house, right? So you have a list of not many, maybe 10, 15 houses in the whole state that might possibly work, and you're gonna narrow it down by the city and by closest distance to you. And if there are 2 or 3 properties, or you find that one property in a neighborhood that has the correct price for your home, you're gonna next look at square footage. What is the square foot average in that neighborhood? Now it might only be a city, and I found several where there's 50,000 people living in, and you're from a metropolitan area like Los Angeles, and might kind of be turned off by how far it is, or how little people live there. But people still live there. People are still having families there and raising their kids there. So there's always a need for housing. Okay, now the rent might be different. You're used to paying rents of $2,000, but in this small town, the rent might be $500. But guess what? On a $100,000 home, your mortgage is only going to be about $800. So if you're able in that market to rent it for $1,500, then you're making $800 profit every month off of just $100,000, off of just $20,000 that you had. Correct? So you want to look at square foot cost. Square foot cost ranges a lot. I looked at a property recently where the average square foot cost is, let me here see, $225. A couple hours away from here, but the average square foot cost was $225 per square foot, and I found a house that is somewhat of a good shape, selling for $120 square foot. So this house was selling price is $120 per square foot, and the total home price was $180,000. Now I figured if I could fix it up in such a way, or just paint it a little bit, I could resell it for the medium range of square footage, which is $225. I would make a profit of $150,000. Correct? That's not counting the repairs and the carry cost that I have. But secondly, when I look at square foot cost, I want to cut my risk the most that I can. So when I looked at this house and the square foot cost is 120, then the next thing I ask myself is, how much would it cost for me to make this house brand new, right? And I found that the average square foot cost to build a house is 150 per square foot. So that's a $30 difference, right? So whatever happens, I'm still in the green. I'm still gonna make money regardless of any other factors that might impact the property, because the property can't be built for less than $150 a square foot. So if the economy goes down, to build that house is still going to be expensive, because salaries are not going to go down. Minimum wage is not going to go down. So it's still going to cost that or more to build the house. So I look into that, and then how much is going to cost me to carry it. Right, so if it's gonna take me 6 months, then I calculate that into the whole cost of the profit that I'm gonna make and how much that's gonna cost me. And the other thing is whether I'm gonna rent or resell it. So if I'm gonna resell it, how long is that market taking for me to sell a property? I might buy a property that's $100,000, but if it's in the middle of nowhere, and if it's taking 2 years for it to sell, then I have to think about that. It might be a great deal. I might sell it in 2 years. That's fine, as long as there's enough margin in there for me to cover those costs. Okay, so definitely you want to talk to somebody about these things and figure out what's the best option. If you do have $10,000, $20,000 in your bank account earning you 2% interest, it might be a good idea to think about this. So if you have any questions, give me a call. I'll be happy to answer you. My phone number is up there, and I'm here available on message. And also, please like it. Please like this video, subscribe, and then this helps me out a lot. It doesn't cost anything. It helps me make more videos for you guys to kind of stay in touch with me. So talk to you later.